Many artists have created visual artwork that has been based on music, yet sheet music is already a visual representation of music. Is sheet music a piece of artwork? In sheet music, the visuals convey sounds using symbols. A quarter note is held for less time than a half note, but visually they are the same size and shape. If we want to visually convey the note's length, this might involve changing the shape to an oval. This might convey the music more accurately in a visual. The symbol would visually depict the time the note lasts for. The image wouldn't just be a symbol to represent the length of time. I'm not suggesting that sheet music should be changed because it has a long history where its design has developed in a functional way. This kind of change would make the score look cluttered and this would make it less functional. I just want to show you that visually the sheet music doesn't look like music. It uses symbols to represent music, and you need to know how to read those symbols to understand it. If you don't know the symbols, it will look like foreign language or a pattern. Sheet music has more in common with a diagram. It's a diagram of the music. If we are to explore the question, is sheet music art, we must also ask if a diagram is a piece of artwork. Previously, we explored the relationship between art and diagrams, and we did this by creating abstract art based on bar charts and Venn diagrams. We looked at bar charts and we discovered that the visuals had much in common with abstract art. The rectangle is an important shape that is shared by both diagrams and abstract art. We also created abstracts based on Venn diagrams, and we were basically using the visuals of interlocking circles. The circle is also another shape that can be found in both. When we did this, we learned a lot about the relationships between both types of imagery. Diagrams and abstract art both use the basic shapes that are so important. These basic shapes are important to every type of visual communication. When we look at musical notes, we can see that they are made from circles and rectangles. These are the basic shapes that are an important part of abstract art and all other forms of visual communication. We created art from diagrams, and because sheet music could be seen as a diagram of music, it is possible to do the same with sheet music. I'm not thinking of the musical note as subject matter. Instead, I'm just thinking of it as a shape to be used in a piece of artwork. Transparency is an excellent tool to use in abstract art. It immediately makes a shape more complex. I've also used repetition and rotation, and these are other key techniques that you can use when making abstract images. Simple shapes become more complex when you use these techniques. In this type of abstract art, you are exploring a shape, and even though you're starting with something simple, it can lead to something more complex. You can still see the music in the image, yet it is abstract, and those symbols aren't immediately obvious. When you learn to draw realistic images, you stop seeing the subject matter, and you begin exploring the shapes and lines. It is a process of observation that improves the ability to create abstract art. You must be fascinated by all shapes and find many different ways to use them. Repetition creates complexity from something simple, and it's always a valuable starting point. Symmetry can immediately balance an image, and it is an excellent tool when creating images. Shading adds depth to the image. Responding to one shape with another. This is another useful tool for any abstract artist. Create a shape that has edges that are shaped by something that's already on the canvas. If all these shapes could move, imagine where they would go, and then create more shapes to show that movement. There are many possibilities. Because there are so many possibilities, we don't have to begin at the same stage each time. Let's go back to this stage in the process and take it in another direction. We kept the symmetry perfectly aligned, but we don't need to. Let's stagger the notes. Now we have an area where the notes overlap, and the use of transparency allows us to achieve more complexity as new shapes are created. When you use basic shapes, it pushes you to explore the different ways of working, and you learn more about creating abstract art. Once again, I'm responding to the shapes that are already present on the canvas. There were many different approaches that could have been taken. The colours chosen and the shapes used seem appropriate for the piece, but it wasn't the only pathway to create a piece of artwork. Perhaps I sometimes feel a kind of artist's regret. This isn't like ordinary regret because it isn't filled with any kind of sorrow. It is something that is full of opportunity. I can see many different pathways a piece of artwork could have taken, and sometimes I return to a previous stage and follow a new path. This was one of the previous stages in the last image. I found the part in the centre particularly interesting because it had those pieces of transparency, and the new shapes that were created were interesting. I decided to keep the shapes in the middle and then repeat it. This was another direction the piece could have taken. When you make a change, it doesn't lead to the same colours and shapes. One change can lead to many more. The artist must always respond to what's happening on the canvas, but sometimes you can see many different choices. When you create a series of images, it gives you the opportunity to explore different alternatives. When you create a series, you shouldn't simply pick a number and decide to do a certain number of images. The series should be led by the things that fascinated you. You should be able to look at a previous image and find something that caught your attention. Then you can explore it in another way. I'm going back to this starting point and I'm sending the artwork in a new direction. A piece doesn't have to be completely realistic or completely abstract. There is space for the artist to use both within the same image. Aspects of the real world can ground an abstract image and lead to something that is both familiar and also unusual. Through these types of images, we can see the individuality in the artist's perspective. This image is abstract, yet it is also a singing tree. Experiment because you don't have to stick to a single style within one piece of work. Every style is a useful piece of classification, but it is only a label, and these things should never determine how you express yourself as an artist. I don't begin an image by deciding if I should create an abstract or a realistic image. I simply explore the things I'm interested in at the time. At the moment, it is musical notes, and at another stage, it could be something else. If you begin a piece of artwork with a firm decision to create something abstract, it will be a struggle to create. There isn't a starting point to inspire and guide you. You haven't chosen what you're going to paint. You've decided how you're going to paint it. If I told you that I was going to create a realistic image, you would question what my subject matter was going to be. Abstract art can have many weird and wonderful starting points. These starting points are essential if you're going to create abstract artwork. The starting point for this piece was an interest in different composition ideas. In this piece, I used the golden ratio and rotational symmetry. These concepts became my starting point. Some starting points are more complex than others. This piece had a one-word starting point, lightning. It is an image that portrays lightning, but it is definitely abstract in style. It's always helpful to have a place to begin, and each starting point provides that.